Hello, Blenders, and welcome to a bonus episode of the ReelBlend podcast, one of our first dips into the archive of shows that we want to bring over to our new channel that didn't exist at the time. My name is Sean O'Connell. I'm the managing editor at CinemaBlend and one of the co-hosts of the ReelBlend podcast. And where else are we going to start when we start to drag over archival interviews than a revisit to an interview with our great friend, Mr. Quentin Tarantino. This is our second conversation with Quentin. So the first one happened during normal press for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And you guys have heard us tell this story a million times, but this is for the new people. We did 20 minutes with Quentin on behalf of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He came on the ReelBlend podcast. And when he showed up, he was familiar with the show. He was quoting lines from the show. He was talking about some of our opinions on the show, and that just kind of blew our minds. And maybe he was doing that, probably he was doing that in preparation for coming on the show. But Quentin, consumes a lot of media and pays attention to what's being said about him and really dug the vibe that we were trying to do on ReelBlend. And at the end of the interview, he kind of said to us, hey, let's definitely do this again sometime soon. And we took that as Hollywood speak, but he meant it, because in December of 2019, on behalf of the home video release of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, we got an invitation to travel up to New York City to meet with Quentin to do a much longer sit down, which you are about to hear right now. Some of the topics that we covered with Tarantino during this conversation is Leo choosing to sort of mess up the Lancer dialogue and wanting to implement that the resetting of the scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, one of our favorite scenes in that entire film. Quentin gets into a lot of his honest takes on his history with the Academy Awards, times where he thought he should have performed a little bit better with the Oscars, a race that he had with screenwriter Mark Bowl at the time for multiple times when the two of them were up for it. He gets into his thoughts on Tom Cruise, which I found to be really, really fascinating, especially with a lot of the rumors that Cruise was potentially going to team up with Quentin for his final film. We talk a lot about the de-aging technology that was used on things like The Irishman and whether Quentin would ever want to use something like that in a film moving forward, and just a lot of places where this conversation went. Now, to let you guys know, if you want to dig through the channel archives as well too, this second conversation with Quentin then set up a third and a fourth conversation. So we have plenty of content with Quentin Tarantino on the ReelBlend podcast, but this one is our second one, recorded in December 2019, and we wanted to revive it here for the new channel because it wasn't available in any sort of archival footage in places that people could find on our existing ReelBlend channel. So this is for the new people who maybe found us over the months and years, most recently because of interviews with people like Denis Villeneuve or Hans Zimmer on behalf of the Dune franchise. Maybe you just found us because of George Miller and Furiosa, and you're like, who else have these guys talked to? Well, one of the times that we've had Quentin Tarantino on the show is coming up right now on behalf of this archival interview with Quentin Tarantino on the ReelBlend podcast. Guys, we are here with a friend of the show, Quentin Tarantino. I feel like I can say that now. We were able to have Quentin on the show earlier to talk about his film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And you said something to us at the end of it, which is very, very sweet, a very industry thing to do. We should do this again sometime. And you hear that a lot. But the fact that you are here right now, actually doing it again and being our first recurring guest.
Oh, great.
We want to say thank you very much for that. So we're very excited to dive back into your film as going through the process right now, and then several other topics we're going to get to. And Kevin is going to start us off.
By the way, we're drinking Casamigos margaritas again. Can we cheers on the actual audio?
On the audio. There we go.
Nice. Fred Rashin's going to edit that for us.
Tradition now.
No, but honestly, there's been so many scenes in this film that I would love to nerd out with you about, but one in particular is Richardson's reset of the shot around Timothy. My favorite shot in the whole film is when they're doing Lancer, and DiCaprio flubs his lines, but the shot comes around Timothy. Richardson brings us around, and the beauty of this moment is we don't know, we're watching a fully edited scene. Yeah. We actually don't see the production, we don't see the microphones, we don't see the camera person, we don't see the director. But in the sequence, when you reset the shot, we reset it mid-scene. Can you talk about the decision of that and that shot being executed? Because it's one of my favorite shots in the whole film. What was the decision there?
Well, it was. I think the decision was how I was going to use the artifice of shooting Lancer in the film. And I think in the script, like there was another Lancer scene that it's on the Blu-ray, but it's not in the movie. That we see the two brothers meet each other for the first time, Luke Perry's character and Timothy Oliphant's character, and so I think in the script the way I did it is the first 3/4 of the scene, it's just like what the hell is this Western doing here? All right, so you're just kind of watching this Western scene, and then in the last quarter of it, we kind of hop on the other side of the camera, and so we're on. So the characters are in the foreground, but then the crew is in the background, and so that was how I thought I was going to do it. And then I actually just thought, no, let's not do it that way. Let's do it as a cut piece, completely
Scored everything, and then when you yell cut, whatever shot that is, or any kind of intrusion that happens from off screen, whatever shot that is, that's the shot where we break the illusion. But up until that moment, it's all like the finished piece.
Because in those moments, mentally, you're like, I'm going to see a camera, or I'm going to see a boom mic or something that takes you out of it.
So the reset indicates to us.
Yes, exactly. And part of my whole thing was, I was trying to get as much Lancer in there as possible because that's like, the closest thing to my third Western. All right. And so the idea that I could sneak it through the back door and kind of get a whole episode of Lancer in there when no one's looking, I'm not going to fuck that up. And I actually really had more of that idea than it was like, then Leo came up with the idea that maybe he should screw up. And
what,
so
really?
because it actually wasn't in the script that he screws up. And so he had this idea that he should screw up, and then when he has to do the scene later, now he's coming back from something. Well, okay, so he comes up with that idea. Like, I knew it was a great idea when he said it, but he's fucking up my Lancer scene. Hey, why don't you just concentrate on playing Caleb, all right? But I knew it was a damn good idea. Okay, so then I kind of played the game. Okay, well, we'll do it when you don't fuck up, and then we'll do it when you fuck up, and we'll see what happens. All right.
So you say that just to please, like to say to him.
Well, no, I knew it was a good idea. All right. So and so okay, well, I'll do it both ways. I want to have my full-on Lancer scene, and I want to explore this good idea. Now, the minute he did the take that you see in the movie, okay, well, this is obviously what we're doing.
Right.
All right. That take was just so fantastic.
Is that also when the director's saying like, no, keep going.
Oh, yeah. No, he knows he knows that at this point he's going to mess up. And so rather than having a director come flying in on a crane or a director talking from off camera, it's Rick who breaks the take with his line. And then you hear the script girl give him the line. And then even the idea that when he has his tinter tantrum, the camera's not following him. He comes out and he steps out of the shot and like whirls around like a buzzing bee. All right. And then eventually has to sit back down into the frame and deal with it all. So once we had that was really great. And then like, oh, well, now we can, okay. And we're still not seeing the crew because they're just still an off camera. There's still an off camera perspective. So then I go, well, now what we have to do is now we have to actually, we've actually just seen this big move, and then the big move works around Oliphant and lands, and then he steps into his position and then fucks up the line. All right. So now we got to reset. All right. And so then the whole idea of having seen this move that's kind of invisible because you're kind of trapped in the whole moment of the movie. Now we see how, and we actually put a squeak, all right, on the track. So it because it's not meant to go that way. And so it's like, okay, and now go. And so, so that's where all that came from. I was very, very happy, but I really liked that idea of showing the media that Rick is shooting as a finished product until something happens. All right.
And it almost reminds you, that's right, I'm watching a movie about that.
And that shot, all right, is what they're doing at that given time. I mean, one of the things about it is I think that you're watching the film, and I couldn't have been happier about the way this works. Well, believe me, if I could have had more Lancer in there, I would have. But as it is, when you see Johnny ride in the town, I think there is this thing for a lot of audience. What the fuck is this shit? And then you're sitting there and you're watching it. And then even the whole thing when he has the showdown with Business Bob, right? I think that's a really cool scene. But I think people are like, what the fuck is this shit? All right. And then, and then when Leo comes out as Caleb, you kind of have a sense of it. And they, oh shit, well, they're going further with it. All right. So he walks in the saloon and that kind of all starts playing out. Then they have their kind of scene at the bar. Then when they go and they sit down at the table, now you're kind of acclimated to the scene. Yeah. All right. You're kind of stop asking, what is this shit? You kind of caught up with it now. And one of the things as a director is you can actually kind of notice when the audience is listening, when they're not, when they're slightly checking out.
You feel that in the script or the
no, in watching it in a theater.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Watching it with an audience. You can feel the audience when they're connected, when they're not, when they're listening. And yeah, I all of a sudden started really feeling, once they sat down and he was like, so what are you doing around here? And Johnny Lancer starts telling his story. Like, oh shit, the audience they're listening now. They're now acclimated to the scene. They want to hear what Johnny's answer is. Rick is Caleb now officially. And so it literally is just as they start paying attention to what is being said and the drama of the scene, that's when Rick blows it.
That reset shot. I could watch that on a loop for 3 hours. I would watch that shot reset
on the way back, and then we were in the Uber on the way back.
Richardson's a genius. Man.
So we had Richardson.
That's my idea.
No, but I mean the way it was executed. But it was Quentin's idea. So Quentin's a genius.
Yes,
we already know you're a genius.
We already know Oscar Richardson III is a genius. My fucking shot.
We had Richardson on the show, and I laid out that whole setup for him as a question. And I also wanted to get his thoughts as to why I went into it. And his reply to me, which you'll probably totally understand and love, he said, what does that scene mean to you?
Oh, what does that scene mean to you?
And then I had to give him a whole long answer that he loved.
At no point about Richardson go, that was Quentin's idea, not mine.
Something we couldn't talk about before, which we can now, is the ending, and specifically the alternate history version of things. I'm curious, whenever you've done it before with Bastards, how far beyond that moment, because it's a fun sort of what if, how far beyond that moment do you start questioning, well, what would have happened to Hollywood if things had worked out that way? And I'm wondering specifically in the world of Roman Polanski, the ripple effect that moment would have had on all of their lives had that been the case.
Well, it would have been intense. I mean, I can't even begin to venture how culturally it would have changed. Because I mean, ever since my movie came out, everyone was quoting the Joan Didion line, like crazy. But there was an aspect from everybody I know that there was this Topanga Canyon entertainment class hippie ethos that really did exist, where the doors were open, come on in. I mean, if you're out drinking and having a good time and you want to get together somewhere, you could go and you could just go to so-and-so's house off of Beechwood and go into their guest house and continue with partying. You don't even need to get their permission, and you just could kind of do that. All right, people could literally exist on couches and couch surfing and just crash pads and stuff, and all that just went away. So I can't even begin to venture a guess of how like I said, the entertainment class hippie ethos, how that if that didn't just get blown away by a bad wind, what that would do. But I can venture that Roman Polanski would probably have done Day of the Dolphin. That's what he was working on at the time. That's why he wasn't even in town. He was in London working on a script stuff for Day of the Dolphin. So I think so that would have happened, and it would really be interesting to see where Sharon went with her career. Now, Warren Beatty told me that Sharon was legitimately considered for Bonnie in Bonnie and Clyde. Yeah,
really?
Kidding.
Yeah, he told me that. He said that it was like, no, she was a genuine. She was one of the three people that we absolutely considered.
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
that would have been amazing.
And so the thing is, like, she played fairly frivolous. Is that the word? Yeah, your word.
Right.
All right.
Right? I think that's the word.
Roles. Or even when they weren't, the movie was frivolous. All right. Valley of the Dolls. But But the people who, but the people around her who were part of her circle, all right, really liked her, really had a lot of faith in her. Like I said, Warren Beatty was part of the circle. He considered her for Bonnie, and Roman would have cast her as Rosemary. If he could have. All right, he said, he said that. I can't imagine anybody but Mia Farrow playing the role. All right, but he said that he actually would have loved to have cast Sharon as Rosemary. But he kept waiting for the Paramount producers to bring it up. And when they didn't bring it up, he thought it would be unprofessional of him to bring it up. But if they had of, he would have gone right down that road.
Wow.
You bring up characters that could be viewed as frivolous. There are none in this film. Like everybody who has even a scene, it's important to them. And one that people have really attached to is Julia Butters.
Yes, and for rightfully so.
For so many great reasons. It's almost like it's a little oasis for Rick, in the middle of this storm. But there's the line that she gives that you used to end one of your trailers.
Yeah.
That was the best acting I've ever seen, in my entire life. She leans over and whispers it to him. If you were able to lean over and whisper that to one of your actors at any given point on a set from a film that you've done before, there were just in that moment where they so captured you, you said, that's the best acting I have ever seen in my entire life. Who would you say that to?
Well, gosh, look, I wouldn't be able to break it down between, this one would be number 2 and this one would be number 1 and that one would be number 3. You know what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go with the first thing that came to my mind when you told that story. So that's not saying this is the best, but it's the first one that came to my mind.
Sure.
When I had I kind of had a moment like that. And even to qualify that just a little bit, because it's like I'm probably always going to feel that way when I've written a really good piece of dialogue or a really good monologue or something, and then somebody comes and delivers it to a fare thee well. So I'm probably always feeling that when Sam Jackson does one of my monologues in the right way, or Christoph Waltz does one of my monologues in the right way. But the moment that I had that kind of feeling was during a take on Django Unchained, and it was with Leo, and it was during a take on Django Unchained at the dinner table scene. And it wasn't the glass, all right, even though that was impressive in its own right. He was talking about his father. I think it was the speech where he talks about his father and the slave that used to shave him all the time. And
I don't slit his throat.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And so anyway, I had a very weird relationship with the character he played, Calvin Candy, because all my villains, every single villain that I've ever created, I always kind of had sympathy for them. I always liked them to some degree or another. And even Hans Landa, I could see his point of view, and I liked the guy. All right, it was bad, but I got it.
Christoph makes him likable,
and he does make him likable,
comical, weirdly enough. Yeah.
And it's even that whole kind of thing in the stories where it's like, you don't want Landa to triumph at the end, but you kind of want Landa to figure out what the bastards are doing, because if he won, that'll build up to how impressive that I made the character, but also it'll be a much more exciting movie if he figures out what's going on and how the fuck are they going to get out of this?
Right.
All right, we're all watching a movie. But Calvin Candy was different from the rest of them. I kind of detested the character. I really, really hated him. And it was weird to write a character that I hated and kind of feel that way about the character. And so anyway, Leo was, and because of that, I actually thought he was a substandard character. When Leo was really into it, I thought I was kind of buffaloing him a little bit. I thought, this character is not as good as he thinks it is.
Imagine that.
Yeah. I'm not going to set him straight. But I'm thinking he ain't all that.
But to you, it was Django's movie. It was to you, it was Django's movie.
Well, it was just the fact that to me, he was without ambiguity, and so that made him a lesser character.
Gotcha.
But we did a really good job of filling in everything, and Leo brought ambiguity to the piece. And where I had that moment, and I actually said it out loud in front of the whole crew, where it was it was one of the many takes that Leo did, talking about his father, talking about growing up at the plantation, and all of a sudden I saw Calvin in a different way than I ever had before. Leo was able to bring me inside of his world and to see him as a person in a way that I had never really looked at him before. I'd just been able to see the gargoyle. And then when the take was over, and I said in front of the whole crew, I go, Leo, man, that was fucking amazing. You've made me understand Calvin in a way that I have never understood him before. And you made me ask a question. Can you blame a Borgia for being a Borgia? Now, actually, yeah, you can blame a Borgia for being a Borgia, but now you can understand a Borgia a little bit more. And it's not so easy to throw off everything you've ever known and everything you've ever been taught. All right? People do it, and people did it even back then. All right? But it's not the easiest thing in the world. And frankly, did this kid ever have a chance?
That's amazing.
You know, and that was not a perspective that I had going into the project.
Did you go up to Leo and tell him that you
I
thought
told it
it
in front of the whole crew.
That's amazing.
So when you did it on Hollywood and Julia says it to DiCaprio, did DiCaprio remember that moment from Django?
I don't think so. I think he was, I mean, he liked that moment and everything, but it wasn't a tearful moment. He was just happy that I was so happy and that I applauded him in front of the entire
So
crew.
he didn't say Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, I think he said that to himself a couple of times.
Where would you put the F word? So it's Rick fucking Dalton. Would it be Leo fucking DiCaprio?
fucking
DeFucking Caprio.
The fucking Caprio.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm available for hire.
I always appreciated your films. As I grew up with them, I had Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs posters in my room. I think my favorite line ever is Mr. White, you shoot me in a dream, you better wake up and apologize, which is a Muhammad Ali reference.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Which is, I always found that you have been a big proponent of the cinematic experience, the theater experience. And with Hateful Eight, bringing back these 70 millimeter projectors, I went and saw Hateful Eight in the Roadshow. It was one of the greatest experiences I ever had in a movie theater. I saw this twice in 35, once in 70. There's something about film that I don't know that I could ever explain in words why it feels so magical, but it does. Yeah. We had Roger Deakins in the show recently, who's been actively shooting very digitally for a long time
Great
now.
name
So
drop. Can we pause on your name drop just for a second? Just for a second.
It is a name drop. We had him on, and we're talking about digital versus film. Sicario, Skyfall, even now 1917, Mendez's film, all shot digitally. When I spoke to you at Django, we talked about the idea of digital versus film, and you said something along the lines of, like, if you shoot digitally, you go to the theater, it's like watching TV at home. Something along those lines, not to take you out of context. Where do you feel the technology has gotten to a point now where you can make it look like film? And when you talk to someone like a Roger Deakins, who is very adamant about digital being able to look like film if done correctly, what are your thoughts on that? Because for me, I'm a film guy. I know you're a film guy. Richardson shoots on film, obviously. So what are your thoughts on someone like a Deakins, who is one of the greatest cinematographers ever, saying that digital can achieve that look? And do you think we've gotten to a point where we can?
He doesn't want to spend the time lighting. It's that fucking simple.
Is that really it?
Yeah, of course it is. That's it. That's what it is. He doesn't want to spend the time lighting. All right. What you see is what you get. All right. He looks at the monitor. There's no 5 processes that he's going to have to go to. All right. He's not going to work through a degrading process that what's actually playing at the theaters. That he has to know that, oh, I got to get this. So 4 steps down the line, when they see it in at a movie theater, it's going to look like that. All right. He looks at it in the monitor on the day. That's it. What you see is what you get. All right. And then, of course he can shoot night scenes in
Sicario.
In Sicario or World War I. All right. And he doesn't have 4 trucks. All right, full of lighting equipment, just trying to get an image. Yeah, it's just it's easier for him. It's easier for him. He can and he does, he doesn't have to do that much on the day. All right. There's a lot of stuff he can do later that will take care of a lot of things.
The work is after, not during.
Yeah. I mean, I like cinematography where it's, no, what you see is what you get is what you do on the day. Now you can do a bleach print, and there's all kinds of little things you can do. But if it's not captured, if it's not captured on the day, then you didn't capture it. You didn't do it. Now, there is a whole lot of, even shooting on film, where people window all kinds of stuff. Like they do an interpositive, and then they can window everything. And to that degree, it's like, before, you could watch a movie and think, hey, that movie has really good cinematography. Well, you have no idea if it actually has a good cinematographer or not now. I mean, the star, all right, could have just been windowing the entire process, and they just got an image, so they weren't fucking around on the day of shooting. And then planning on doing all these windows when it came, okay, well, let's bring the sky out a little bit more here. Let's bring the backgrounds out. Give me a little bit more black over there. That's, it's all a paint box set. And that's even when it's done on film.
Right.
All right. When it's on digital, forget about it. You can do literally anything you want. But I guess where I'm coming from is in a world where you can do anything, nothing means anything.
That's a great,
So what do you ultimately feel about digital and film in the sense of, I know you still probably feel the same way, and I do as well, but do you think we're getting to a point where digital can ever achieve that look officially? Like can you look at Sicario?
Well, here's my point of what you were talking about. And I don't think I'm throwing Deakins under the bus.
No,
I think I would let him say I'm wrong about why he's coming from where he's coming from. I think it is that case. But the key to the way you pose the question is, we can make digital look like film. We can do it. We can have a thing that looks like film. Well, film looks like film.
Right, exactly.
All right, if you were going to create something that could not be done on film, and I'm not talking about just the hard work of it being done on film, but if there was this other format, all right, that created a look that just film is incapable of doing. Well, that would be something.
Yeah.
That would be something. That would be legit as far as I'm concerned. But, trying to add, trying to take digital and then add a shutter effect or grain or speckling or anything like that. What the fuck are you doing, man? All right, just shoot on film.
Do it.
Shoot on film.
This tofu tastes just like steak.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean,
I'll take a steak.
It's a veggie burger.
Yeah.
All right. I've had good veggie burgers.
Right. One of the things I love most about this movie, and there are a lot of things, trust me, is that as a 31-year-old guy, you let me feel like what Hollywood felt like in 1969. Like for 2.5 hours, I felt like that's what I missed. Sucks that I missed it, but I got to experience that for 2.5 hours. If there's a kid out there right now who's going to be a future filmmaker, and in 50 years he wants to make a movie about what Hollywood was like, in 2019, what are some aspects of this business today that really are going to stand out and that he's going to focus on when he tells the story of Hollywood in 50 years?
Wow, gosh, that'll be interesting. I think it's a situation where it's like, we have to be aware enough to know that we really don't know what they're going to be talking about 40 years or 50 years because we're in the middle of it. I don't think if you talk to any 10 luminary filmmakers from 1969, they would have the take that I had on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because they would just be too into it. I mean, whether it's now giving you this is a little off topic, but only vaguely. I think one of the closest things that we could have actually seen possibly is apparently Sam Peckinpah really wanted to do the movie adaptation of Joan Didion's Play It As It Lays.
Wow. That's awesome.
And like the studio was like, I fucking forget.
When was this, before or after Wild Bunch?
It was after Wild Bunch. I think the book came out like within the next year or something like that. And so I think they made the movie version with Frank Perry like somewhere around 73 or 72. And but Peckinpah wanted it. And they go, don't be ridiculous. And so they didn't even consider him for it. But there's an aspect to my movie that's a little bit, this is the closest we're ever going to get to the Peckinpah Play It As It Lays. But I mean, I would part of the reason we don't know is we don't know how things are going to play out. I mean, one of the things, but the only thing that I do know is I don't know what things are going to be like 7 years from now.
Okay.
I don't, and nobody at this table does. I don't think anybody in the
industry
industry
Could you have said that in the 90s if I'd asked you this question?
Of course. I never wouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have said that in the 90s. And I would have been a little wrong, but I mean, it could really, really, really be different. Like, we didn't see the record album going away as an art form. We didn't see literary heroes going the way of the dodo bird. All right, you know,
Streaming.
yeah, exactly. We didn't see, yeah, we didn't see a lot of these things happen until they happened.
Yeah.
Until they were literally in the rearview mirror. And so you know, we're struggling, we're fighting, we're contemplating what movies are going to be now. But I think in 7 years we'll know. But what I know is we don't know now.
I'm going to follow up in 7 years.
We always sort of take a step back and look at the big macro picture of the year in film, essentially. And
It's been one of the best years of film I've seen in a long time.
it's been really
I love
impressive.
this year. Yeah.
Personally, I'm thrilled that you let this movie come out in July.
Yeah, me too.
Because right now there's such a glut of really good films that are hitting at the same time. And so in a given week, we might have to process, you know, Richard Jewell, 1917, Little Women, all these films that are...
Which we did recently.
Yeah, I mean, and it's almost unfair to the films. And so I know you went through that with Hateful Eight, where you entered it into a really crowded marketplace. Yeah. And we're also going for theatrical, you know, experience as part of that and fought with that. So I'm just curious how much that factored into your decision to let this breathe in July, even though people who might think that like, oh, we want awards chances, that always wants to go out later in the year, you know, but you were like, fuck it, I'm going to go in July.
Well, I think that's, I've done that like twice before in this decade, all right, in the case of Django and in the case of The Hateful Eight, where we both, in both movies, we opened them up on Christmas. And Django was very well rewarded for that, both box office wise, and then we did, and we got, and you know, I won a screenplay Oscar for it, and Christoph Waltz won Best Supporting Actor Oscar for it. That ended up being really good strategy for us. Mm-hmm. But it was a drag that, you know, it's just poured into the marketplace at the last second. The conversation's already has long since begun.
Right.
You know, and Hateful Eight, even though Ennio won the Oscar for Hateful Eight, I was a little disappointed by what happened with us there. All right, but at the same time, I kind of understood it. Now the situation though is, looking back on both Pulp and Inglourious Bastards, there was a big benefit from the film. Rather than just this rush, everything's got to come out in the last month. There was a big benefit about the fact that the films had played and had done well. They were actually known as successes, and that people saw it not in a mad rush. A lot of people saw it at the theaters when it came out, and maybe they've even seen it a couple times, right. You know, twice or three times maybe. And in the case of those two, and so, you know, they weren't just waiting for the screener.
Right.
Most of them had a theatrical experience, and not a crushed one, not a pressured one. And they, you know, and not only that, like the film had come out early enough that it's like they have memories of it. Their neighbors saw it. Their dentist saw it.
Right.
Their daughter saw it. Their daughter's boyfriend saw it. And so there was like, they literally had conversations. The movie was alive and living. And so I don't think the way it's existed, like I guess from the first decade of the 21st century, where all the movies are that are real Oscar contenders are backlogged till the last 2 months of the process. I don't think that's the way it is anymore. They're always going to be the ones that are coming in there, but I don't think that's the best strategy nowadays. I actually think the best strategy is opening your movie soon enough so it's not part of that crunch. Find yourself. Don't let the tail wag the dog as far as your Oscar chances are concerned. Pick the best date for your movie. Let it do good on its own. Let people come and go see it, and then let it take on. Look, yeah, maybe I wouldn't, if I was going for Oscars, maybe I wouldn't open a movie in February or wouldn't open it in March, but you should be able to do that.
I'm curious, how come you have never participated in like the Toronto Telluride bend, or have you?
Well, I did with Pulp Fiction. I did with Pulp Fiction and with Reservoir Dogs. I won the whole film festival circuit.
Okay.
With that, the way it, but the way it worked out for all the other ones, it just, I just kind of didn't need to.
Okay.
We opened in Cannes, or we just were literally making it in time to make a release date.
Okay.
I mean, literally, like that was our date, was our release date, and we had to kill ourselves to get it done in time.
Gotcha. Because those are other scenarios where it's like
And
you're
Jake-
seeing so many movies in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Jake does have a follow-up to the Oscar question, but since you mentioned the release, it got me thinking about something. The Blu-ray is coming out almost at a perfect time.
Yeah, right.
Is that designed to come out in December to bring it back to people's memories? Not that it left, but does that part of the design help?
It's the right kind of synergy.
Right.
All right, and it's also one of those. I mean, we still have theatrical engagements going on.
That's
once
awesome.
upon a time
So
in Hollywood. At the easy enough at the New Beverly. I own the damn place. But the thing is, we're not showing to like an audience of 30 people when we show on the weekends, and it fucking does great.
That's great.
Really, to this, months later. But then the Blu-ray coming out, it's the right time, but it's also just. But again, I think it just suggests that we open the movie at the right time. So now this is the right time for the Blu-ray, and then the synergy is fucking perfect.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So it's not just a knock it out a screener that we send to the Academy members. You can get the real damn thing. All right. And
because we got the DVD screener, and I went, I can't do this.
Shout out to Shannon McIntosh, who's
Yeah.
in this room. McIntosh, we're talking about this Once Upon a Time in Hollywood Blu-ray. It's one of the coolest things, and Shannon's very involved in making these shows. An amazing job. And you want to mention the Mad thing real quick?
Yeah.
This is really cool.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things is one of the things on the Blu-ray is
we're holding right now.
I'm touching right now. I'm fondling right now. Is an issue of Mad Magazine that has a takeoff on the show Bounty Law called Lousy Law. All right? But it's our second takeoff on it, because what happened was, so I had that. So when you saw Rick's house, like a lot of the old stars of that day, you go to their house. It's always a line that cracked me up. It was Robert Mitchum talking about going to Kirk Douglas's house. He goes, "Have you been to Kirk Douglas' house before? You're in a fucking Kirk Douglas museum."
I can see him saying that. I really can see him saying that.
So I figured Rick's house would be like a Rick Dalton museum. So it would be like the one sheets for his movies, and then and highlights from his career, where it's like, he was on the Bounty Law was on the cover of a TV Guide twice. Once him, once a Jack Davis style caricature. So both of those TV guides are on the wall. Then like his LA Times Sunday calendar TV guide cover is on the wall. And then I had that Mad Magazine did a takeoff on Bounty Law.
Right.
And so we got in touch with Tom Richmond, who's like one of the really great illustrators at Mad Magazine. And he does the Jack Davis style. So that's kind of the thing I wanted. I wanted to be as if Jack Davis drew it. And so we asked Mad, can we do a Mad Magazine cover and put it as a prop in the movie? And they go, yeah, sure. And so we get Tom, and I designed the cover. Not this one. This is a different. This is a new one. The one in the movie. The one in the movie. So I designed the cover. Okay, this is what I want. And Alfred E. Newman is on the wanted poster, and he's picking his nose right up to the knuckle. All right, and Rick is and J.K. Hill's looking, going, nah. and I even came up with the idea that and the parody title instead of Bounty Law would be Lousy Law. So Tom does it, and it's terrific, and we have it, and I even have the original artwork. Thankfully, and then and we put the cover on the wall. So anyway, it looks so fucking cool that we go to Mad Magazine and they go, look, this looks really great, and look at it with your logo and everything. Why don't we do this for the real Mad Magazine? Now, I got a big surprise ending, so I can't let you guys do Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But I could bring your guys over, and we shot a lot more for the Bounty Law episode than we ever show in the movie. We could show you everything we did, and then maybe you could do a takeoff on Bounty Law. And then, one, it would be fun because, okay, you're making fun of Bounty Law a little bit. That would be great. But you get a chance to just parody 50s television westerns in general. Well, they ended up loving the idea. So they sent a couple guys over to the editing room. We showed them everything we had. And then they went off and then they wrote a whole Lousy Law parody with Rick. And then they took that cover and they put it on their magazine. That was the cover of their magazine. That ended up being the last original issue of Mad Magazine.
Oh
that's
No, that's the one in the movie.
It's the one we created, the one that was released with the whole,
The one in the movie is the last one ever.
Yeah. Was the last one. I mean, I think they're still figuring out what they're going to do. I think, but I think it's going to be a lot of reprints from here on in.
Right.
All right. And so the last official where everything was original was that issue. So to sum up, I,
Not Robert Richardson.
designed the cover
Richardson just
of
texted
the
me.
last issue of Mad Magazine
gosh.
ever.
I feel like you've been waiting to say that.
Take that, Judd Apatow. You wish you could have written for Mad Magazine. Fuck you, motherfucker. Do what I did.
All I'm hearing in my head now is Lousy Law, starring Flake Cahill.
Yeah, that's it.
That's all.
That's what it is.
That's what I'm hearing.
Flake Cahill.
Flake Cahill.
Take the Palme d'Or, take the Oscars. It doesn't matter.
Flake Cahill.
Mad Magazine.
The Oscars to hold up the Mad Magazine.
And so in the
That's amazing.
Judd Apatow is getting hemorrhoids right now just hearing that story because he could never hope to top it.
and on the Blu-ray, you're gonna get another version of the Mad Magazine.
A
It's
new issue of Lousy Law.
Very cool.
Circling back to the Oscar buzz we were talking about, if you can't tell, you were sitting at a table full of people who champion you and champion your work, so much so that your victories are our victories and your losses are our losses.
Thank you.
And the reason I say that is because we all believe that you're one of the greatest directors that's ever existed in the history of film. So it bugs me to no end that you have yet to win a Best Director or Best Picture Oscar. If you are sticking to this 10 film stretch, which you say, that means you've got 2 shots left.
Yeah, right on.
How bad, do you want it bad, or is it something you just don't really like? You got 2 for writing, so it doesn't bother you as much?
Well, it doesn't bother me. My career has been so amazing that
You've done okay.
Yeah.
You've done okay.
My career and my life has been so amazing that to be bothered by not having a trophy or something would be, yeah.
It probably bothers me more than it bothers you.
Well, it'd be nice. It would definitely be nice. And we'll see what happens. All right. I think I got a good shot at it though this year.
Do you feel this year is different going into it?
Yeah, I do actually. I do.
What is that different feeling?
Well, that's a good question. I was actually just contemplating it when I said that. All right, it's like I wasn't bummed about not winning for Pulp Fiction because there was part of I won the screenplay. But one, that was kind of the role back then. It was like the cool hit movie won Best Screenplay. And then the more Oscar movie that you thought was going to win the Oscar was the one that got director and got Best Picture.
Can I pause you for one second?
Yeah,
That is the reason I hate Forrest Gump as much as I do.
We haven't just. He actively.
I
hates
legitimately
that movie.
hate that movie, and watching that movie triumph that year over, to me, 4 legitimately much better films.
Shawshank was that year too.
Exactly.
Quiz Show is that year. 4 Weddings and a Funeral is that year, and of course.
That's why doesn't Matt Damon say that the Oscars should be held 10 years after the movie comes out? That way you can gauge the impact that film had because Pulp Fiction clearly stood the test of time.
But that's part of the reason why. I'm sorry. Continue.
I get it. I get it. I mean, but there is also another reality where it was. It probably wouldn't have been the best thing for me to win Best Director and Best Picture with my second movie at that young of age. won best screenplay, and I was very happy. But I mean, it wasn't difficult, but it was a thing to even overcome Pulp Fiction and move on with the career as it was. If it even had that attached to it. I mean, I don't think I would be feeling that now. All right, now Pulp Fiction would just be among the best picture winners, and that would be what it is. But, but for the 6 years that happened after that, I think it was probably good that I didn't have that kind of albatross, around my neck. That something to even just make Pulp Fiction even a harder thing to get past. In the case of Inglourious Bastards, it was we had a shot, but we all knew Catherine was going to win for The Hurt Locker. Yeah. So it was just kind of was the way it was. Now, in that instance, I was totally pissed that I won that I lost original screenplay to Mark Bull. All right. Now, I like Mark, and we were doing a lot of shit talking with each other through the entire process. I just think my script was better. All right,
it was
the opening scene along.
Yeah. That's what I thought. All right, so that's where I felt I got robbed. All right, and then when it came back around for Django. And he was nominated again for Zero Dark 30. All right, I bump into him in the lobby of the Kodak, and I go, "Motherfucker, you're not even getting out of your seat this time." If you get out of your seat, you better be taking a piss. Because you ain't getting out. I am not competing against anybody else here except you. I'm going to shut your fucking candy store down tonight.
How is that not your speech?
That's amazing.
Not only that, fucking Mark Bull, all right? Even
poor Mark Bull.
In Inglourious Bastards, even did this whole fucking thing, all right? Well, because we go to a zillion award shows before the Academy. Yeah, so it's like, so at least 6 different things. So, I mean, we get along. He's a great guy, all right? So, and Catherine's really cool. So we'd end up at the parties of these things, and we'd be like having cocktails together and drinking and talking about stuff. And so then Mark goes, "Okay, man, it's between you and me. So I think we make a deal, man. I think we make a pact. All right? So whoever wins, when you go up there, you talk about the other one." When you win, you go up there, and then I give it to you. And then when you win, you go up there, and you give it to me, because it's about us. All right? And I think that's how it's got to be, man. I go, okay. He didn't say jack fucking shit when he won. I was like, what the fuck about
he thought you were going to win.
7 different parties.
Yeah.
7 different parties. That's what you said we should do. It was your fucking idea. Yeah, I know,
and you would have done it for him.
I would have done it for him. I'm a man of my word. All right,
Which is why you're sitting right here right now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not really mad at that. I think he actually just got. You can say that you want to say a ton of shit when you actually win an Oscar and you get up there, everything goes out of your head. So
what is that moment like?
I think
we will. I'm never going to experience it. What is that? What is that moment like when they call your name?
Well, it's one of those weird things where it's like, look, you want to win. But at the moment, just before they call your name, you kind of don't want to win because you don't want to have to go up there. I mean, I'm only talking about that 10 seconds.
Yeah.
All right. Just before they call your name, you kind of like, that means I got to go up there.
Who presented yours? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do, as a matter of fact. It was for Pulp Fiction. It was Anthony Hopkins.
Wow.
And for Django Unchained, it was Dustin Hoffman and Charlize Theron.
Oh, my God.
You mentioned Hopkins. And going off Jake's question now I'm kind of curious. Once they go to commercial break after the win happens, when you walked back with Hopkins after Pulp Fiction, do you remember what you guys talked about?
I don't remember saying anything with. No, I think me and Roger were doing all the talking. All right, because we both won it together, so we were very happy. But in the case of Charlize and Dustin, it was great because Charlize is my neighbor. All right, so she was like,
you talked about this.
I think I mentioned it. All right, and she was like, "Oh, Quentin, I'm so happy for you." And I was also Dustin Hoffman was the one that reminded me. He goes, "No, take the envelope. Take the envelope." All right, I would have left the envelope there. All right, but he goes, "No, Quentin, take the envelope." And I still have the envelope. I don't have the envelope from Pulp Fiction, but I have the envelope for
who has the Pulp Fiction?
I'm just the janitor of the fucking Dorothy Chandler
Robert
Rebellion, I
Zemeckis
guess.
stole it.
Yeah.
No, it's funny. Now I have an idea for your 10th movie. You should do it because since you do the idea of rewriting like the ending with Sharon Tate and obviously the rewriting of the ending of Hitler and Bastards, you should rewrite the ending of the Oscars of '94. Literally, like you rewrite. He goes back, Pulp wins, and we cut to Zemeckis. He's like,
Single tear rolling down Tom Hanks's cheek.
He needed it. Well, I will tell you what I would rewrite. All right, if I could for '94. And I think it would have made the Oscar ceremony, it would have made the whole campaign really more exciting. I wasn't involved with this. I didn't even know that I should have been involved with this, and I should have been. It was ridiculous that Pulp Fiction was put in the drama section of the Golden Globes. It obviously should have been put in the comedy. As a matter of fact, I thought it was. It wasn't until a couple of days before the actual ceremony that I realized we were in the drama section.
wow.
It's like, we're a comedy. Now, the only reason it wasn't, it was because everyone was talking about how violent it was. But what made it special was that it was as violent as it was, and it was really funny.
Hence the Marvin getting shot.
Shot Marvin in the face.
It's a comedy. Every video store in America put it in the comedy section when it came out. And the fact that we were in the drama. So the thing about it is I was shocked about that. But if we had been in comedy, then Forrest Gump would have won Best Drama. We would have won Best Comedy. And it would have been Catch as Catch Can for the entire season after that.
Why Hollywood's in comedy?
Well, no, it deserves to be in comedy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it straddles both lines, though. There is drama.
Well, there absolutely is drama there. But, the Golden Globes have tried to get me to put my movies in comedy every single year. I mean, maybe not Hateful Eight, all right, but all the other ones, they try to get me to put it in comedy. Go, Quentin, I'm telling you, it is the funniest movie of the year. If you put it in comedy, you will win. And I was like, it's like most of them are foreign. I go, guys, I can't put Django Unchained in comedy. All right. Yes, I agree.
Good call.
It is very funny.
Yeah.
But Americans won't think that shit's funny.
Good call.
So true.
I'm going to sidebar for one thing because I just thought about it when I brought up the Marvin shooting sequence in Pulp Fiction. When I sat down with Samuel L. Jackson recently for Spider-Man Far From Home, I was asking him about that sequence, and he told me a story that he feels that John Travolta actually shoots Marvin on purpose because he's mad that Marvin didn't alert him about the guy in the bathroom. And in the movie, it could come across as an accident. But Sam Jackson believes it was actually done on purpose, that Vincent does it on purpose. Where do you fall on that as the writer of that scene? Like, are we supposed to think it's an accident, or do you want us to think it's on purpose and thinking about the Marvin situation?
Well, look, in my whole movies, like, if I want you to know, I tell you.
Right.
And if I leave it open, I'm leaving it open for you. So I could tell you what I think, but if I tell you what I think, that is the way it is. And I've got no problem with Sam's version of it, and I have no problem with anybody else who has that version of it. But I don't want to tell you what to think. I like the fact that both. I love it. I love any scenario where both ways almost equally work.
See, that's the thing. I don't want you to tell me it was on purpose because I like it better in my head.
Me too.
That it was an accident, that it really was a legit. Like, I feel like it
yeah.
changes that whole, not in a worse way, but it would change it for me.
And frankly, that is more where I'm leaning. But at the same time, I don't want to shut the door
Right.
on anyone who's invested in the other thing because the other thing works.
Yeah.
You must love how much fun people are having with Brad Pitt's backstory
Oh, I love that.
and his wife, right? I know, I jumped.
I'm not going to ask you to tell us, but do you actually know in your mind what happens in that story?
Oh, yeah.
You
So does Brad, too.
wow.
Actually, one of the ways that I ended up getting Brad in the film, all right, was I wrote a whole book chapter about him on the boat with his wife, all right, and gave it to him, all right?
What?
Yeah. It's called Misadventure. Yeah, and so he knows the whole thing.
Okay.
All right, and that was like one of the things that pushed him over to actually wanting to do the film.
Did you ever show more of it? Did you ever show?
No. We didn't really show more of it. All right. We kept it the way it is. But to me, what I like about it, especially like how it exists in the movie, is okay. So it's one of two things. It's either this guy is in this situation, he has a horrible moment of weakness, and pulls that trigger, and he gets away with it. He gets away with it, but on one hand, he's not spending the rest of his life in jail. But on another hand, he doesn't get away with it, and it's this heavy thing, constantly hanging over him. It's affect his ability to get work. It's affect the way that people look about him, the way people think about him and talk about him, and it probably affects him in a huge way. And then he has this moment of, conceivably redemption at the end of the movie. All right, that ends up happening. So that's one movie. That's a movie. That's a really good movie. That's a good, strong movie. So that's that movie. There's another movie. And this other movie is he didn't do it.
That's what I want to
was
believe.
literally an accident. It's an accident that happened. And it might be even more tragic than just an accident. He might have been thinking about it, and then the gun went off by accident. So he doesn't even know. Did a little finger? Was there a finger pull in there because I was thinking about it, and so he can still torture himself about that. But he didn't do it. It was an accident. Now he gets away with it. He doesn't go to jail for the rest of his life, but nobody believes it's an accident. Right. And he's tarnished by this crime that he actually didn't commit, and he's defined by this crime that he didn't commit for the next 20 years. And then that guy gets a chance at redemption. Those are two totally different movies. Completely different movies, different characters, but they're both valid.
Right. Is it also a Natalie Wood thing at all?
It has nothing to do with Natalie Wood.
Really? Well, that's what I was going to ask. That's what I want. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with Natalie Wood.
The coincidence that her name is Natalie.
Yeah, and that was literally, and look, I had no problem with it, but that was Rebecca Gay Harden, who played the character. All right, she just came up with that. She just came up with my sister named Natalie as an improv. She just threw that in. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Okay. Cool. Rebecca Gay Hart. Excuse me.
Yeah. Do you consider that similar to how you feel about the briefcase and the Band-Aid? Are those similar things?
They all come from the same place.
Okay, come from the same place.
Now, this is a little different though. The briefcase, I want you to kind of put it together yourself, and whatever you come up with is what you come up with. Here are two very specific scenarios. All right, that are brought up by the whole wife situation, and that's why I can describe them in this dramatic kind of way. But they're both very different.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to transition to something that I think is interesting. We talked to a lot of filmmakers, and Sean's the only father of our podcast. We do not have children. I know you're about to be a father.
Yes.
Which congratulations
Thank you.
to you.
Thank you
We're so
very
happy
much.
for you. Do you envision at all the idea of how fatherhood will change you as a filmmaker? I know you can't look at it now because it hasn't really particularly happened yet, but do you wonder how you will change as a director and how as a storyteller? And do you think it could create more creativity on your part in regards to keep going and keep making more movies? Have you thought about how fatherhood's going to change you as a director?
No, I guess I haven't, because I guess not having lived it, I guess when I look at it, I see limitations. I don't see, oh my God, this door is going to open up and this new level of creativity is going to come pouring out. I see that. My whole thing about directing is going off and climbing Mount Everest or whatever mountain I'm climbing, Fuji or Kilimanjaro or whatever the deal is. I keep coming up with mountain climbing analogies for what I'm trying to do, and the idea that now I have a child and I want to be around when the child's going to school and go to their little stupid plays and all that kind of stuff, maybe I'm not as free to go and climb Mount Kilimanjaro, all right, and take the whole family and put them in Africa, for 9 months or for 6 months. Now, actually, my wife would be down with that, all right. But there is an aspect. I remember talking to Warren Beatty when he had his kids and how happy he was, and it was like, no, the days of me making Reds are over.
Wow.
But then, like, not everybody. I mean, no one's done it the way Coppola did it with Apocalypse Now, and he took the whole family to the Philippines and bet their whole their house and everything on it, and that's just the way it was. Right. And actually, the fact that he did it with his family was actually part of the the grandiosity of the whole thing, and they backed him 100% on it. And that was exciting. So one does not mean necessarily the loss of the other. But I guess, so I haven't, look, I'm aware enough to know what I don't know. And so I don't know how it's going to change me. And I frankly can't wait to find out.
Well, do you have a movie that you're waiting to be able to show your kid, like for the first viewing of, I can't wait till I can show you this? Mine was McTiernan's first Die Hard.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Cool.
Yes, because that's just one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, to me, because I've actually watched this happen amongst fathers and sons and everything. And I've watched this happen between fathers and sons, and I've watched actually parents and their daughters have different movies too. So it's actually kind of interesting. I can't say what child's going to be. However, on the day that I do have a son, I know that the father-son movie I'm really looking forward to have with them is The Good and the Bad and the Ugly.
Oh,
yes. Yes.
Oh, wow.
I have actually, it's like, that was a very special movie when I saw it with my mom and my stepdad. And it was, and I've actually, it was funny because even like when the kids have been older, I've actually, because I have a really gorgeous print of the film on 35 millimeter. And I've actually had like a couple of different fathers go, you know what? My son's never seen that movie. I would love to watch that movie with my son. I go, well, come over to my house.
Quentin, my son's never seen it.
I want to have a child right now.
I'm going to go home and have a kid with my wife, and then I'll call you.
I will find a wife to have a child with.
He has never seen it.
Well, okay, but let me follow up on that with a really cool story. One of the best reviews I've ever heard for Good and the Bad and the Ugly was, it's one of the movies I show pretty much, like with every movie, we have movie nights and we show different films. And the two constants that we usually show is we show a Sorcerer, William Friedkin's Sorcerer.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And we show The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. And I've actually seen like the crew members bring their sons over to see it.
Projectionist in your house who runs it?
Well, I do have a projectionist. He could run in a house, but like when we do a movie, we're doing a set. Shannon usually develops a screening room for us to show movies at. Even if like literally building the projection booth and everything, like we did in Colorado. All right, for Hate to Late. Yeah, the Sergio Corbucci Cinema Theater is what we called it. All right. So all of a sudden, like Mark Yolano, the sound man, his son saw Good and the Bad and the Ugly and was just gaga for it. All right. So we're doing Inglourious Basterds in Germany, and we're having these screenings. And Brad Pitt takes his son Maddox to see Good and the Bad and the Ugly. And Maddox is 9 at the time. So he walks in with Maddox, and they sit in the back, and they sit there and watch the movie, and Maddox really loved it, and he was really proud of him. All right, he goes, "Oh wow, it's a 9-year-old kid, and you have 3 hours, fucking was right there." All right, and he really got a kick out of the movie. So then they come home, and the mom Angie is waiting for them, and so she, and so they come walking through the door, and Angie goes, "So Maddox, did you like the movie?" "Yeah, Mom, it was really great. It was terrific. I loved it." "Wow, that's fantastic. Well, what was the movie about?" "Well, it's about this good guy, and it's about this bad guy, and it's about this ugly guy."
That's what Sergio Leone's pitch was in the studio.
And she goes, "Well, which did you like the best?" And Maddox thinks about it. And goes, I like the ugly guy. That's a great review for the movie.
That's
One more
awesome.
follow-up on fatherhood. Have you thought about how you're going to introduce your own filmography in chronological order and just naturally, or are you going to introduce it at all? Maybe.
Good question.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Well, I'm definitely going to introduce it. I mean, they're going to have to deal with it one way or the other.
Start my best friend's birthday.
Yeah,
Whatever exists from that, which
Yeah,
still
yeah.
has true romance dialogue in
Yeah,
it, by the way.
absolutely has
Yeah.
true romance dialogue in it. I will. But I don't know. I'm going to play that. I'm going to play that by ear. I think whatever I'll introduce to them will probably be. It's going to probably be a lot younger than most people would imagine. All right, but it's going to be whatever I think would float their boat the most at 7 or 8.
All right, we're going to get to Mr. Al Pacino, the legend, who is having an incredible year.
Hell yeah.
We're all blown away by his performance in The Irishman, his performance as Hoffa, and it reminds us that he got to start with you.
Yeah.
Talk to me just about casting Pacino, directing Pacino, being able to work with him. Obviously, you have De Niro also, too, back from Jackie Brown, too. These are icons. These are legends. These are people who we would just, love to spend any time with, and you're getting to cast them as characters of yours. What was it like working with Pacino on this?
Well, it was fantastic. It was really, really cool because I've always been a huge fan of Al Pacino's, but in particularly, he was an actor that I really wanted to hear him say my dialogue.
Yes.
Yeah, that was he was one of the main actors out there that has not said my dialogue that I wanted to hear the words come out of his mouth. And so even before the script was done, about a year earlier, I started reaching out to him. And so we started having dinners and we started getting together, and I saw he had that play that David Mamet wrote where he kind of plays Trump on Broadway. I went and saw that.
Right.
Hung out with him afterwards, and then he was really friendly, and I was like, oh wow, okay. And then his de facto stepdaughter Cammie, all right, was in my friend Eli Roth's movie, the Death Wish film.
Yeah.
And so it's so I had all these neat excuses to meet Al. And so then we started actually going out to dinner, and then he got to know my fiance. And so we went out to dinner quite a few different times, about 6 or 7 times over the course of the last year and a half before I'd even showed him the material. And we were really kind of getting to know each other. In fact, it was even kind of we had this one moment where I was getting into his head. We had this really one moment where it was I'm talking to him about older actors, wanting to know his take on them. And I asked him about the actor Aldo Ray. And he goes, oh, Aldo Ray was great. He was fantastic. There was this moment. Oh, it was such a moment where it was Sidney Lumet was meeting with him for the Charles Durning role in Dog Day Afternoon. And so he came in to audition, and I was just almost embarrassed that he's auditioning for me.
Wow.
But we're doing the scene together, and it's just fantastic, and it's amazing. The scene decided to go a different way, but just to be able to do the scene with him, it was just so great. And I go, you're not talking about Aldo Ray. I think you mean Ralph Meeker. He goes, yes, I do. How did you know that? I can read your mind. Fuck, I can't read yours. How did you know that? How did he know that?
That's a really good Pacino, to be honest. There's a scene in this film. I'm going to skip ahead briefly because I think it's one of the most powerful scenes in the movie that I thought a lot about after I saw it. Our producer Gabe over there, who was with us when we saw it, when we walked out of the film, we were all in love with the film, but it's a very different experience from you as a filmmaker in the sense of I felt that you're relaxing in these moments. We're hanging out with these characters. It's a different type of tone and pacing for you, at least from a perspective of someone who's a fan of yours. There's a moment in the movie where Pacino tells DiCaprio, that your audience is going to have a psychological effect about you always playing the heavy. And they're always going to think of you as the heavy if you keep playing the heavy. And I was wondering, is that coming from a place of someone like you as a filmmaker who has you have a very distinct tone and storytelling that you do? Every movie you do is different, but there's elements of your voice in all your movies. And I feel it here more because I feel like this is more of a personal film for you as a love letter to Los Angeles. Are you saying anything about how people are going to experience Hollywood in that moment and the idea, and this is something Gabe and I discussed, we psychologically expect a certain type of film from you, and then this one was very different in my opinion. Are you saying something about that? Am I reading into that, or where did that dialogue come from?
Oh, well, I mean, like, it came from... It came from the reality, you know, of the given scene, of the fact that, you know, Rick Dalton was a heroic leading man. And that's, you know, and Jake Cahill owns his own bones as being a Western icon from that time. However, if he's showing up with Ron Ely and getting his ass kicked by Tarzan in this episode, and getting his ass kicked by Alias Smith and Jones in that episode, and getting his ass kicked by the $6 Million Man in another episode, and getting his ass kicked by Robert Urich on SWAT in another episode, then little by little by little, the heroic stature that he had both as a leading man is going to get chipped away because, well, apparently any swinging dick on a network show can beat the fuck out of him, right. You know? And then also Jake Cahill himself will little by little get tarnished in people's minds when they watch it on, when they watch it on reruns. They go, wow, yeah, okay, yeah, that was back when he was Jake Cahill. Now I'm watching Michael Douglas kick his fucking ass on the streets of San Francisco. All right, okay. Having said that, so that's where I was coming from as far as all that was concerned. But a couple of critics brought up what you're talking about. I wasn't thinking about it as any inner monologue coming out, but I have not had a problem defining myself as both a genre filmmaker and an enthusiast of genre filmmaking. Now, my whole thing is I wanted to transcend genre. On one hand, I want to transcend the genre. On another hand, I still want to deliver the goods that the genre has to offer. I don't want to do an art film meditation on genre. I want to deliver. And so if I'm doing a kung fu movie, I want it to be as good as Five Fingers of Death. Not this weird arty hybrid of that. All right. Frankly, I want it to mean a little bit more than Five Fingers of Death, but but that's the thing that I'm, that's what I'm dealing with. But over the course of time, and that kind of happened a lot especially with the think pieces, but the people who don't like me or don't like the movie, some of those tropes that they have about me have been dyed in the wool a little bit. And so they come out. And so I'm now, as defined, so if you like me, well, those can be good things. If you don't like me, those are a checklist of what you don't like about me. But frankly, to tell you the truth, though, if you go through film history, it really is a badge of honor, all right? Because that means that your work is strong, your work is vital, and if your work means something, then you're going to have real enthusiasts. But consequently, you're going to have people who really, really don't like you. And Hitchcock had that, and he had those think piece reviews that were against him in the last 10 years of his career. Peckinpah had that. He had those reviews. Ken Russell had that. All right. Oliver Stone had that. These guys were all provocateurs, and that's just if you're not going to be a provocateur, you don't have to deal with it. But if you are a provocateur, you're signing up for it.
Amen.
Piggybacking on Kevin's idea of expectations, leading up to the film's release, there was one word that people seemed to just overly attach to, which was Manson.
Yeah.
People coming into this is Tarantino's Manson movie. And then we see the movie and we realize he's really not in it that much, which I loved because he was such an egomaniac. I feel like it would drive him nuts that he wasn't really the focus of this movie. I'm curious, was that on purpose? Because talking about expectations, I don't know if you ever read the Wikipedia page for your films, there was a whole fake plot on the Wikipedia about this explosive ending with Manson, which was the complete opposite of that, which I'm so glad it was the opposite of that because screw him.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's actually interesting. Is like I had a little bit more with him, and I actually put that in the supplementary section of the DVD. The other scenes that I had with Charlie. I put that in there. One, because Damien was so fantastic. All right.
Did you see him in Mindhunter?
Yeah, of course I do. He's amazing in that. And I'm the hugest fan of his he's one of my favorite character actors that there is.
And you feel his presence the whole movie, even though he's not on screen. That's the beauty
absolutely.
of it.
Especially when she says, like, oh, like Charlie would really dig you.
He's
like,
always, he's in that Spawn Ranch scene. He's in every moment for me.
That's how I feel. Yeah. That's how I feel. And I didn't want to put that ultimately the way it worked out. I didn't want to put that in the movie, but I didn't mind putting it in here. Because now that you've seen the movie, you can look at you can appreciate what Damon did. You can appreciate what Damon did. And then also you can see, oh, okay, well, this is a little bit more that he had dealing with that culture. And I was pretty happy with Manson's dialogue in it too. I had to find the right cadence for his speech patterns. And I think I did a pretty good job. But one of the things I was going to say earlier on when you asked the question about how things would change, and I got lost, I lost one of the trains of thought that I wanted to go to, and you brought it back now by bringing it up. One of the biggest changes that would have happened if Cielo Drive didn't happen is if Cielo Drive didn't happen, the La Bianca murders would never have happened. So there would be no Manson ethos. There would be no Charles Manson as a cult figure. There would be no Charles Manson as this like sinister pop culture ephemeral hero / villain. All right, that has existed for the last 40 years. You would never know his name. You would never know who he is. He would just continue going on the way he was. The kids would eventually split up. All right, they would get rousted out of Spawn Ranch one time too many, and then they would, and it all would have dissipated. And this, and where that would, that would change true crime history irrevocably. But it would also even change the history of Los Angeles. It's like Charlie and his quote unquote family are a part of the fabric of the history of Los Angeles from that time and then from all that time afterwards. I mean, to even such a degree, and I get it. Young actors come out to Hollywood and they make a pilgrimage up to Cielo Drive at midnight. Margot did it. Margot said she, on the night of the murders, one night, her and a buddy walked up Cielo Drive and hid in the bushes and read Helter Skelter by flashlight.
Oh, wow. That's
No
insane.
kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's, but all the girls playing the family members in the movie were really enraptured with, they're not enraptured with Charlie and the killings that happened, but they were enraptured by the mythos.
Right. Right.
And that's, and especially when you're young, that mythos is enrapturing.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Of course.
So like they did tons of research that I didn't have to ask them to do. They did it. They showed up on the set of Spawn Ranch with all their little relationships and the little massagey kind of things that the characters do. All that stuff, like where Lena's kind of just always touching Margaret, and Margaret's always kind of touching Lena as they kind of. I didn't direct any of that. They just did it. They watched. I gave them all the stuff to watch, and then they had a lot of time together. So they figured all that stuff out.
Even just their physical camaraderie when they first cross Brad's car.
With
the amazing Mrs. Robinson beat drop.
Yeah.
They have such a chemistry to them that they just look like a family as they're crossing.
Absolutely. No, I literally, shooting them was like shooting a documentary. Like when they're dumpster diving, I set them up and they just do it. And then I can just film. And I can throw anything at them. Okay, you find the hot dog buns. You do this, you do that. But other than that, it's just film them.
Right. That's amazing. Quentin, you famously got your start in a video store.
Yeah.
And I'm an old also. So I remember spending hours just perusing covers forever. But this next generation, you know, you were able to sort of surround yourself with that passion.
Yeah.
Those stores don't exist anymore, or they're few and far between. Where does that next generation of filmmaker coming up, you know, find that video store inspiration? Because streaming doesn't seem to be the answer to me.
Well, it was funny because actually, I never had Netflix here, but I ended up getting Netflix in Tel Aviv because that's where my wife is. And so I ended up getting Netflix in Tel Aviv. And then when I got it there, I was like, oh, hey, this is kind of fun. I kind of see why people like this. This is really cool. And then when I came back to Los Angeles, I wanted to meet with Ted Sarandos and just tell him, because he's been always very, very complimentary to me and everything. And I wanted to let him know, hey, I got the system now and I like it and I appreciated it. But I said to him, I go, if I've got, can I tell you a couple problems that I have? And he's like, yeah, sure, I want to hear. I go, look, my big problem is when I looked up 70s cinema, I was surprised by how paltry it was.
Right.
I go, I mean, I looked up Burt Reynolds to see what you had playing. And I know that they change every month. I looked up Burt Reynolds to see what you had playing. You had 4 movies, and 2 of them were The Longest Yard.
Oh, no. They love Sandler. They really do love Sandler. Oh, that's terrible.
Okay, so we have 4 Burt Reynolds movies, and 2 of them were The Longest Yard.
That hurts so much.
He winced. He winced in front of me.
Right. That's so funny.
You told me when we spoke for Django that whenever you worked at the video store, that a lot of times kids would come up to you and say, look, I don't know what I'm looking for, but I'm looking for something that's X, Y, and Z, something that does this for me. What would a kid have to come up and say to you now for you to go over, take an old dusty copy of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, dust it off, put it on the counter and say, this is what you're looking for?
Well, here's the truth. It was rarely kids who did that. It was mostly housewives.
Okay. Interesting.
It was mostly housewives.
Why is that?
Well, no, because the kids have a good idea what they want to see and what they don't want to see that they're going to watch with their friends. You know, the housewife is like, she's choosing like almost like they did in the old days. It was like, it was the wives that chose the movie that the whole family, like in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, that the whole family would see, because they're the ones reading Film Fan and Modern Screen and kind of keep up with a little bit like what's hip and what's not. And so like they're the ones that chose the movie. And then the whole family went and saw what they did. Now, if the husband likes Audie Murphy, then he goes and sees that stuff. But you know what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah.
And no, best years of our life. You're gonna like it. It's really good. You know, Harold Russell. He's really good in the movie. We want to support him. You know, and so the housewives were the ones like picking the 3 videos.
Right.
Yeah. And I actually I prided myself on not just shoving the stuff that I liked down their throats. I prided myself on trying to kick into who they were and what they liked and try to put something in their hands that they would like. You know, I mean, you know, people are like, well, I want something funny. Well, give me a couple of examples of comedies that you like. And then I have an idea. All right. So if they said Tootsie and they said this or they said that, well, then I had a good idea. If they said Caddyshack, then I had a better idea, you know? And so, you know, so I would always get, a good romantic movie. Well, but that's a really wide open subject. I can definitely point you to some movies that I think are romantic, but what do you think? Give me a couple of romantic movies that you think are romantic, you know? And so, and they would tell me, and I would put movies in their hands that I didn't particularly care for, but I thought they would like, you know, so that all kind of thing happened. I mean, you know, where, this is not exactly this is more answering your question than answering your question.
No, I'm fascinated by this. No, I'm all for it.
Pinballing back.
We're not scorekeeping. It's okay.
Frankly, I think if you don't have video stores to go to where you get to see the whole, you know, like, I mean, I never knew that the video boxes in the horror section would become so iconic in my memory. To me, they were just the video boxes of the horror section.
Remember the Dead Alive box?
Yeah.
That was awesome. Brain Dead or whatever it was called.
Or the Dead and Buried box, or any of the
Army of Darkness.
or any of the slasher films that you never even saw theatrically, but they were always
It's
in the horror
Alive,
section.
which was a baby cradle. I want to say.
Which one?
It's Alive, I think.
Yeah, It's Alive was
baby
definitely the baby
cradle?
cradle. And
Yeah.
It's Alive, and it lives again. It's the 2 baby cradles. And it was a Warner Brothers film, so it was a Warner Brothers green clamshell box.
The bigger ones, right?
Yeah.
I
With the
love
green,
those.
with the green color.
Yes.
Didn't Exorcist have one of those?
Yeah,
I think Exorcist did have one.
Warner
Yes,
Brothers too.
that's right. Yeah.
All right. And so the thing is, I never realized that for an entire generation of kids growing up in the 80s, during that time when, they were 14 or 15 coming into the video store that I was working in, that whole horror section, that whole video shelves would like become this iconic thing, the way movie posters are to me. I think the answer to the question is where they're going to find that, frankly, is in podcasts.
Hey.
Or Amoeba Music, if you can go there.
And that's still DVDs for sale, and that's a little different, and it's whatever's available now, even though they do a pretty good job of all that. Yeah. I will admit that.
Not looking for like a pat on the back, but like for the press tour for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you did more podcasts than like sit down TV interviews. Why is that? Because we always used to get you for TV for Django and Bastards and everything, but this film was different. Why is that?
Well, frankly, I didn't really feel. I didn't feel that the 5 to 6 minute to 7 minute entertainment journalist aspect was the way to.
We did our best.
Sell this movie, yeah. I didn't think I didn't think that was where 3 of the questions will be the same in every one of them and whatever. I actually thought that you would get a better sense of me if I went on movie-oriented podcast, all right, that I had actually listened to, that I had I knew what I was walking into. I wasn't walking into a fucking propeller, all right. I knew what I was getting into. I had a sense of the personalities. I had a sense of your voices. I had a sense of the give and take, and I had a sense of what you all liked. And you don't always have to like me, but you get it. I get the show. I liked it.
Yeah.
All right. And so thus I could go on, and then I could be me, and it was movie oriented.
Yeah, of course.
It was all movie oriented. You guys were all movie fans, and we can be talking about my movie, and we could shift into another movie, and we could shift into this, and we could shift into that. And I thought that was a better use of my time, because I actually thought you got more of me in that situation. And also I just find those things more interesting. I do really like the fun, for the most part, movie oriented podcast. And the thing about it is, when you guys you're always dealing with the movies that come out, but you're constantly relating them to movies from the past, and so it's like a Mike Flanagan episode could be just as much about the history of horror cinema in general as Mike Flanagan.
Yeah. Or Kubrick.
All right, depending on how this deals with versus that.
Yeah, of course.
I'm gonna. You mentioned liking our show, and I'm gonna be a fan just for a second here, because when I was in college and Kill Bill came out, I went and saw it multiple times opening weekend. And this was very special to me, because when I was watching that film for the first time, I had read online that the House of Blue Leaves scene was in full color in the Japanese release. Yeah. And I ordered the $120 like really cool box set that my wife still has, the Okinawa shirt, which she just wore. We went to Okinawa recently.
I bet she looks cute in it, because it's a cute shirt.
I'll show you a photo. It's a great shirt, but it was in that box.
He's not going to disagree with you about that.
It was in that box for all those years, and she's the first person to ever wear it. So I bring that up because when I got that DVD, seeing that scene in full color was always amazing to me. And I ended up taking Japanese in college because of that movie. It influenced me more than anything. And I'm going to show you my new tattoo in a second, but that's another thing. I have a Kill Bill one. But I want to bring this up because I always found this interesting. With the House of Blue Leaves sequence going to black and white, I've always wanted to ask you the specific idea of how you decided where you were going to start the black and white and end it. Because originally, I believe you planned on that being in full color, and the MPA did not like the spraying of the blood and all that blood. Can you talk about that conversation you had with them specifically, what that change was like for you to have to actually alter your film based on a rating system, and kind of how you came to the conclusion of getting it the way you did?
Cool. Can we pause for just a second while I run to the restroom?
Yes,
and I'm ready to answer the
absolutely.
question?
Cool.
Yeah.
For directing.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Can you believe they're doing a Top Gun sequel?
Well, you know, it's funny. I know Tom a little bit, and I asked him about that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I go, so you're doing a Top Gun sequel? He goes, yeah, we're doing it. I go, how can you do that without Tony? And
That's the question.
and he was like, and he goes like, I know. He goes, like, I agree with that. I understand. That's how we always thought about it. But then I think it was a guy who did Oblivion actually came up with the story. He goes,
Joseph Kosinski, right?
yeah, he goes, he came up with a really great story.
Okay.
He came up with a great story that really worked, that I really enjoyed taking the character further in that way. And it was like, the script. He goes, the answer to your question is the script.
Okay.
They came up with a really good idea.
Well,
Back to the Blue Leaves.
well, yeah, and I guess before you answer the question, I'm going to show you this.
Holy shit. That's already Hanzo's sword.
And it's actually healing. I got it last week, and that says Kill Bill.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Bravo.
man. She did a really good job.
We got phase
hours,
pictures in our tech.
That's kind of amazing.
Look at the
that's
shading on the Hattori logo. And
yes,
everything.
I
Yeah.
know. No, it's absolutely right there, man.
Torihanto.
Yeah, Hattori Hanzo. Yeah, Hattori Hanzo.
Yeah, the Akaido bear.
If you come, what's that line? If you come across God, God will be cut. Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah,
God,
yeah.
one of the best lines ever.
Yeah, the Okinawa bear right there.
man.
Yeah, Okinawa lion. Excuse me,
Yes,
Okinawa
yes.
lion.
Wait,
Yeah.
I gotta ask real fast, Quentin. Do you have tattoos?
No, I don't.
No.
Does this weird you out?
Kevin
that
gets
I
a
have
lot
this?
of movie-related tattoos for movies that are very passionate, like he's very passionate about. If you were to get one, what's a movie that you would want to have on your body forever?
Well, the reason I don't have any tattoos is because there's nothing I want on my body forever.
Does it bother you that I have?
No, it doesn't bother me at all. I consider it. No, I'm very tickled. All right, when you show me that, other people have showed me ink that they've done. That like wow. I mean, that to me is the ultimate. That is the ultimate. Attaboy.
That's why I told you the Kill Bill story. Going back to that is because like we all grew up on movies, and your filmography just happened to be during the time period that I grew up.
Yeah.
So you are the big reason why I've seen Rio Bravo. You're the big reason why I've gone back and watched all these films.
Just even looking at your arm, looking at put your arm the way the sleeve
it
normally
peeks
falls.
out.
All right, just the fact that like the end of the blade is like always kind of sticking out.
It kind of reminds me of Clooney's tattoo in From Dusk Till Dawn, where he's kind of up on his neck a little bit.
Yeah.
That's one of the best reveals when he takes
Oh, yeah.
the jacket
Yeah.
off
And
to
then it's like
finally
a sleeve.
show the-
Yeah.
I almost got You're So Cool right here. I haven't done that
time.
one yet. There's still time for that on the
Still time,
napkin.
still time.
Talking about fandom, you
oh,
I gotta answer his,
The MPA question.
yeah, okay. So to answer your question, no, it's not exactly the way I think you think it is. The way you presented it.
This is why I asked.
To me, yeah. I had a wonderful relationship with the MPA, and especially with Joan Graves. That nobody was in anybody's pocket. She had a job to do, and I had a job to do. But she actually did like my movies, and she appreciated what I was trying to do. And I was willing to work with her, and she was willing to work with me, and it lasted for my entire career. All right, and she just retired just recently. But there was even a point in the case of Pulp Fiction where she was just she wasn't the head of the MPA. Richard Hefner was the head of the MPA then, and she was just like assigned to my movie. And so we were dealing with an aspect of the film, and I knew because Richard Hefner had this whole thing of he was going to stop this violence in movies in his last year if there was one thing he did. And he had really ran herd over True Romance in a really bad way. And so the head never gets into it unless it comes into arbitration. So I'm never going to go to arbitration because I don't want Richard Hefner sticking his big nose in this thing.
Right.
So I'm going to make it work with the board that they give me. And Joan was the head of that board. And finally came down to we're working together. Everything's going fine. And I make a cut, and she comes back and she says, you need to take a few more frames out. I know what I said, and I mean what I said. It's just a little too long. It's a little too lingering. If you take a few frames out, you'll get your R. I promise you, Quentin, you'll have an R. Just bear with me. Take a few more frames out, and I promise you, we'll be happy. We can give it an R and feel okay about the R, and your movie will absolutely survive. Not a problem. Just I'm asking you to go a little deeper, but just bear with me. I go, okay, Joan. Okay, I'll do it. And then I did it. Now, Richard Heffner hears about it. And he's like, okay, so what's going on with this Tarantino movie? Because I'm already a known entity from Reservoir Dogs and True Romance. All right, so what's with this Tarantino? Well, it's okay, Richard. You know, this is Joan. It's okay, Dick. Everything's fine. Well, I want to see it. I said, well, no need. I mean, he hasn't called for arbitration, everything. I want to see it. So she shows him the sequence. Not the whole movie, but the sequence.
In full color.
Yeah, in full color. And we're not talking about Kill Bill. We're talking about Pulp Fiction at the time. Yeah, this is Pulp Fiction.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
which scene in Pulp Fiction are you referring to?
Well, I'm being ambiguous.
Okay.
I got you. Oh, okay.
I'm being ambiguous.
Okay,
I'm being
I got
on
you.
purpose.
I got you.
All right. And he looks at it and he goes, well, that's not enough. He has to take more out. And she goes, well, no, Richard, I told him, no, if he did this, I would give him an R. I go, well, I'm sorry. It's just not enough. And she goes, well, then, Richard, then I have to resign.
Wow.
Good for her.
Because I made a deal with him. And if my word means nothing, then I can't work for this organization any longer. You know, and he goes, okay, fine, it's fine. Let it go. And then she became the head of the MPAA.
Okay.
You know, and so, you know, and we had a good relationship built on negotiation and trust and understanding. She's got a job to do and I got a job to do. And no one's trying to monkey with the other one. At the same time, it's my job to be strategic because I want to get done what I want to get done.
Sure.
So in the case of Kill Bill, I realized early on that, like, obviously people are going to talk about the violence in the movie. Well, it's a kung fu movie, and I'm even jumping off from, you know, like some of the 70s samurai gonzo kind of movies like Baby Cart from Hell and stuff like that. You know, so that's an aesthetic jumping off point. And so I'm thinking about that, and I go, okay, how do I win the battle and the war? And the violence is a given. I have no problem with the violence. It's going to be the red blood that gets me, though. Americans can't look at it the right way. Europeans can't. White people can't look at it the right way. In Asia, they get it. They get it in Asia. They get it in Italy, oddly enough, but they don't. They're not going to get it in England, and they're not going to get it in America. If it's just a wash in blood, that will be a Surgeon General warning in every single review. You'll drown in blood. You'll drown in blood. The blood, the blood, the blood, the blood, the blood, the blood, the blood. When they say drowned in blood, what are they really saying? They're saying drowned in red.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's about the red of the blood. It's not about the blood. It's not about the intellectual idea of blood. It's about a visceral reaction to flowing liquid red.
Sure. It's almost like Scorsese in Taxi Driver. I think his was almost more orange.
Yeah. And so I'm giving them this 40-minute nonstop cut limbs, and people have garden hoses for veins. All right. And, you know, arm gets lopped off and it's like the Bellagio fountain shoots out of them. You know, and I got that from Shogun Assassin and, you know, and Baby Cart at the River Styx and all those like really groovy Japanese movies. So I had a whole scheme where it's like, okay, look, we're not going to get our the first go around. I mean, we're definitely not going to get it the first go around, but we're not even going to get it the second go around. We're not going to get it the third go around. We're going to get it the fourth go around. Okay, it's a process. We're going to have to go through it, and we got to get them there, and we'll get them there by the fourth screening. And so then the whole plan was, okay, we show them something horrendous at the beginning. They see that. And then I cut it down a little bit and then show it to them a second time. And then, okay, well, it's a little better the second time. And then they give me some notes. And then I work on those notes. And they were also really good because like they give you notes and maybe you can't do that note, but you can do something else that then affects the overall. So that note's not addressed, but now the overall is a little different because you did what you did. And the whole idea was to get through 3 rounds of notes from them. And then on the 4th, go to black and white.
Oh, okay.
And then when I go to black and white, they go, oh, okay, well, fine. Well, now, great. Everything's fine.
Wow. Okay.
Now you got your R. So that was the whole plan. Now, the wrinkle in the plan was we did better in the first 3 passes than I ever expected us to do.
Oh, wow.
So much so that I could have gone out with it in color. If I had done like a couple of minute things for that 4th screening, we would have gotten an R with it in color.
Wow.
What you didn't think. And so I had to think, okay, do I want it in color in America? For the Western world.
Yeah.
Do I want it in color for the Western world? Or was I right all along? Was I right all along that the onslaught of red will have a negative effect on the audience and the prognosticators of the audience when they talk about the movie? If we kept it all in color for the entire sequence, then it's just a bloody movie. And that is all people will talk about. I don't mind it in Asia because they get it.
Right.
But these Americans just don't get it. They just don't get it. That's all they will talk about. So, you know, and I actually think it's kind of cool when it turns to black and white. You know, so I mean, it literally is a situation where I get to, very rarely does it happen when you get to have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, sure.
And to me, you get to have your cake and eat it too. And there always was the Japanese version. Right. So that was always out there. So if you wanted to see it that way, you could. So, you know, so that was the huge decision when I could have gotten everything I wanted. But then, no, there was a reason for the George Bush pronunciation of the strategery, all right, you know, that I put into place at the beginning. And like, no, keep going on that idea.
Yeah.
That's the way to go. And do you see my point of where I'm coming from about the idea of about just the blood just being a bridge that could never be crossed?
Yeah. I figured after De Palma's Carrie, we're okay with anything.
Yeah.
How does Cooper get away with the elevator scene? I mean, it's insane.
Right,
Well, it's
exactly.
abstract.
But you're right. It's
abstract.
It's not as brutal, I guess.
art.
Well, it's abstract. It's a little image. It's not something that's happening, and like there's a cause and effect of it. I chop somebody's arm off. There's a cause and effect for why the blood's happening.
Thank you for telling that story. I've actually always wanted to ask that. Thank you for
Fascinated
answering.
as a filmmaker too. Like when you've come into the industry, you don't even think about battles with the MPAA. You know, you just want to make your
oddly enough, in a
story.
weird way, I did for the simple fact that I grew up reading Fangoria magazine.
Okay.
With every filmmaker, all these motherfuckers are Nazis, and my God, the fucking motherfuckers.
Were you excited for your first battle with them?
No, I realized that these guys are wrong, all right? De Palma's approach with the MPA was wrong. Wes Craven's approach with the MPA was wrong. These fucking Nazis, how dare they fucking do this to me? All right, it was like, well, of course you're not going to get along with them if that's the way you're fucking talking about them in the press. Right. If you're treating them that way, all right? Like, I got to make friends with these guys. They have a power over me that no studio is ever going to have.
Yeah, it's true.
And then oddly enough, the reverse ended up happening. I had a fantastic relationship with them. And see, the studios are used to using the MPAA as the bad guys. All right, they don't have to be the bad guys because the MPAA is going to be the bad guy. So they get to sit on the sideline. Hey, it's not our fucking fault.
Yeah, right. Like they're defending you.
You're contracted for an R. So as long as you deal with them and get your R, and then you talk to us.
Right.
I got R's on like horrendous fucking shit. And the studio had now the studio actually had to okay, no, we want you to cut it now. All right. This is too much. All right. But they actually had to step on the line of fire and let those guys be the bad guys.
Wow. I would love to watch the MPA watching the Tim Roth scene in the car in Reservoir Dogs. They're probably flipping out over how red the blood was.
I'm dying,
on
man.
his shirt. I'm dying, man.
Big Rame says, the MPA is going to let that guy do this to me? The guy in the mask.
Oh, my God.
Even when it came to Reservoir Dogs, that was before I was actually dealing with them personally. We had somebody at Live that was handling that. But then when we made our little choices and made our little cuts, and then the MPA guy told the guy at Live, he goes, hey, look, you tell the director, as far as we're concerned, that he made some tough choices, but I think he made the right choices for his movie, and his movie works intellectually and artistically. He made no compromises. We're actually proud of how he took our notes.
Which is interesting because that Kill Bill scene is more comical. It's more of a fun moment. Yeah.
Well, thinking about fandom, we were talking obviously with Kevin here. We were talking about ultra fandom. You were very kind to Kevin and myself a few weeks ago when we saw you at the restaurant, the Four Seasons, and you were trying to eat. You were in the corner. I think you were maybe talking.
I had
with
no
someone.
idea that I was there during the Irishman.
Scorsese was across the hall, literally.
Yeah. And we literally joked, when you walk into a restaurant and notice that it's a BFCA event, how do you not just turn around and leave and get out of there as quickly as possible?
I considered it.
And I get that. And so you were being surrounded by people, people were asking you.
I know, but I'd driven all the way there. I parked the car.
You stayed? I'd have gotten out of there so fast.
We were trying to get out of there, and we were part of the BFCA. But people were asking for photos. People were all over you, and you took a couple of minutes out of your time, and you were very kind to myself and Kevin. And I'm curious as to fan protocol. Someone in your position, I would imagine people are coming up to you all the time asking for photos, asking for your time, asking for this. What is, from your perspective, what's proper fan protocol? If someone sees you out in the street, what's the best way to have a positive situation for you that works with both you and them?
That's easy. Don't ask for a photo.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Don't ask for a photo. I'm not going to give you a photo. All right. And not only am I not going to give you a photo, it's going to vaguely tarnish the encounter. No, if you ask.
Don't ask for a photo.
If you ask for a photo. But just coming up and saying, I like your movies, and wanting to shake my hand, and, and then I'll get your name and everything. And if you don't ask for a photo, depending on what the situation is, I might even engage you a little bit longer. Yeah. If you ask for a photo, a glass wall comes up, and I try to say no in a nice way and everything, but I ain't giving you a photo.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. It's it rubs me the wrong way because it means I don't think you even really want to meet me. You just want a piece of me. Yeah.
There's a lot of that out there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring it back to Hollywood because I'm just curious. I do stunt casting all the time. I like to have fun with what if this happened or that happened. Yeah. What if early in your process, Brad and Leo came to you and said, Quentin, we've been talking about it amongst ourselves. We think we're a better fit if we switch roles. Would you have ever listened to them?
Not in this case.
Okay.
I can imagine a situation you're doing True West or something hey, let me play this guy and let me play that guy. And
right.
I think there was a discussion like that with William Hurt and Rod Julia with Kiss of the Spider Woman or something. But maybe we should switch roles. But no, I actually think they're cast really well. And for is Rick being Leo being the actor and Cliff being the stunt guy. Mm-hmm. Now there could be a couple different alliterations of the casting where something like that could work. But I don't think but that would be more stunty in this case. I actually think Leo is perfect for the character he's playing, and Brad's perfect for the character he's playing.
Gotcha.
My wife and I were in Japan recently, as I mentioned, and we went to Gonpachi, which was
Yeah.
awesome. And in there, you obviously walk in. My wife surprised me. She actually didn't tell me where we were going. She's like, we're going to go to this place. I want you to walk in, and I want you to look at it and tell me what you notice. I walk in, and I immediately go, Kill Bill. I mean, it was like the way it was designed.
Yeah.
And I was, I saw your photo in there, and I believe this is a story, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you went there to eat and then kind of inspired the way that scene ended up looking.
It gave us, I had my own design for the restaurant, and the own design for the restaurant kind of found its own way. I was kind of lost until I kind of figured out what the restaurant would look like. The only thing about that place was the concept of the stairwell.
Yes.
All right. Surrounding it. All right. So that really locked us in. That's what we in particular took from that place.
So the question for you then is, what are other places you've been to that have inspired a scene in any of your movies, like a restaurant you ate at, wherever you went, that we can now look back at Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs or Ambassadors or Django and go, Quentin went to this place and it inspired the look of that moment?
Well, God, I don't know if there's that many of them. I mean, there was, I guess Jackrabbit Slims was pretty much inspired by a crazy Planet Hollywood version of there was a series of 50s cafes in the 80s and 90s called Cafe 50s. And I think there's only one left, actually. I have
to go there.
I think there's one in Venice, on Venice Boulevard. That was the first one, but there's still one by the Nuart. All right, on Santa Monica Boulevard. That's still that one's still going, but there was a few of them all the way. And then there was Ed DeBevick's. That was kind of this crazy Farrell's kind of place. All right, but Cafe 50s. So the idea though, but like I said, a Planet Hollywood version of Cafe 50s. In fact, it was funny because Harvey Weinstein kept wanting me to do a real Jackrabbit Slims.
Which I want you to do, a real Jackrabbit
The
Slim.
way they had like Planet Hollywood. We'll get a couple of stars and we'll back it up and we'll open a bunch of Jackrabbit Slims across the nation. It'll be fantastic. And I'm like, Harvey, I'm kind of making fun of these places. I remember I spent about like a page and a half describing Jackrabbit Slims to the nth degree. And then after I got through describing everything about it, I go, this is either the best or the worst of these places, depending on your point of view.
That's awesome. I want to get to go back to casting for a little bit because I get really excited when a director pulls the same actor back repeatedly, and you have people who are part of your ensemble, the Tim Roths, Michael Madsen's, and I'm always excited, like, oh, how is he going to use them this time? Sam, especially, right? You always use Sam in many different ways. But there are other examples of actors that you've only worked with one time. Like I mentioned McTiernan's Die Hard. Bruce Willis to me was really important. So when Bruce Willis showed up in Pulp Fiction, I was like, oh, this could be great. Quentin's going to work with him a lot.
Yeah.
But then you don't. And I'm just curious, what's the difference between the people that you bring back, versus an actor who you had one particular role for? Do you ever try to get another role for a Bruce Willis or a Travolta or someone like that?
Well, look, in the case of like, I think, Bruce especially, I think really wanted to be in a few more movies and everything. And around the time of Pulp Fiction, I thought that was going to be the case. In every single situation, it's not a situation of, oh, well, this is an actor that I've worked with once and I've had my time with him and now that time is over. But these are the guys that I like more and I want to bring them in. It doesn't break down like that. It's about the characters. It's about the characters I'm writing. And especially at a certain point, once I got out of the 90s, once I was out of the 90s, I was less inclined to fall in love with an actor and what I could do for an actor and what I could do with their persona and then take them into my world and fit it around them so they would shine, which I think was kind of where I was coming from a lot in the 90s.
Robert Forster.
Yeah. But starting from the but Robert Forster actually is just such a perfect fit for Max Cherry. All right. So I think he would have won that role regardless. But from the 2000s on, I mean, I guess with the exception of Uma Thurman, because I completely built Kill Bill around Uma Thurman. But with the exception of Uma, I think it was a situation where from that point on, I started taking my characters more seriously.
Oh, interesting.
And so some of the decisions I made in the 90s, I might not have made in the 2000s, all right? Because it was more about the character and finding the best actor for that character and not so much caring about that actress persona and everything they'd done up until that and how I would make it work and the cause and effect that this could have on their career. It was more about, no, it's about my character. I got to get my character right, and I have to bring my character to fruition via this actor. I got one chance at it. Here it is. And so in that instance, I have yet to write, I think John Travolta is a fantastic actor. I think Bruce Willis is a fantastic actor. Harvey Keitel is an amazing actor. I've yet to write a character from the 2000s on that I thought that they were the perfect person to do it. I mean, frankly, the closest would have been Bruce, because I wrote Bill for Warren Beatty, and it ended up not working out. And then I cast David Carradine, and then I kind of rewrote it for David Carradine. Bruce would have been my third choice.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it would.
I can't imagine not
You didn't rewrite it again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it would. It would have been. When I read the original version of Kill Bill, it kind of cracks me up now, because it's the Warren Beatty version.
Okay.
You know, and look. The point of it is when you watch it, I want you to not think that I can't imagine anybody but David Carradine playing the role. I want you to think that. But when I look at that original version, you know, Bill was a little bit more of a evil James Bond type.
Okay.
Rather than the Bondian villain.
Yeah.
He was more a Bond, an evil Bond. All right. You know, and he kind of had he had a Warren Beatty kind of quality about him. And frankly, to tell you the truth, I probably wouldn't have to have rewritten it that much if I had cast Bruce in it. Bruce could have actually played that evil James Bond kind of character. And I would have just leaned into his personality maybe just a little bit more. I mean, a little more, a little less Cristal, a little bit more Coors. All right, you know, a little less champagne, a little more beer.
Yeah.
All right, which I think is part of Bruce's charm.
Yeah, sure.
All right, but that would have been a slight lean in. That would have been a slight lean in.
I wonder if that would have felt stunty, though.
What?
You know? I wonder if it would have felt stunty.
I don't think so. No, I think I can imagine Bruce and Uma doing that
Sitting on
scene
that
at
couch?
the end. Yeah, I can imagine him being
But Carradine
terrific.
delivering that Superman dialogue. I just can't imagine anyone else doing that.
Can you imagine
Well,
Chris?
that's the idea.
man.
Because I did it right.
Can you imagine Christoph is playing Blofeld now? Is that
What?
is that hilarious that Christoph is playing Blofeld in the Bond franchise now?
I didn't really care for Skyfall, but I dug Spectre.
We're on the opposite end of that one. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really liked Spectre. I thought Skyfall was like, what, this whole fucking movie's ending at a shootout at a fucking cabin? This is a James Bond movie?
Mendez was doing a little bit of Nolan
What
there.
the fuck is this? Like wannabe fucking straw dogs bullshit. All right? And like a fucking farmer is helping him out? This is like James fucking Bond?
Yeah,
What the
no,
fuck is
Spectre
this
was like a
crap?
laboratory in a desert.
Yeah, Spectre, no,
fun.
but from the opening action sequence in Spectre on, I was like, okay, now this is a James Bond movie. again.
You're funny. That's funny.
So Kevin and I both interviewed John Travolta separately earlier this summer, and he expressed to both of us his continued desire to do something we talked about last time we all spoke, which is Vega Brothers.
Said he would 100% do it if you wanted to do
And
it.
I made a joke last time we spoke about, because we had heard about the de-aging and Irishman and everything, and he kind of went like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. You've seen Irishman now.
Yes,
I'm curious as to this loaded question, your thoughts on how that de-aging process finally worked out, and would you ever reconsider using it for Vega Brothers?
I wouldn't consider using it for Vega Brothers. All right.
Vega Brothers is just not happening.
No, I mean, it will be a graphic novel if it was going to be anything.
I would read that. I would read that.
I'd buy it.
I would read that.
Can we do a Mad Magazine version of that? I'd watch that. Let's read that.
Well, by the way, okay, that first Mad Magazine, I haven't read this issue yet, but the first Mad Magazine I thought was so funny, I wanted to film it. All right, I thought it was, I would have dramatized that. All right, no, I don't think I'd do that as my last movie, but I could see it as, like I said, I could see it as a graphic novel or something like that. Yeah.
So what did you think of the de-aging process of Irishman?
Well, it was interesting. I didn't really have a problem with it. I saw it at the theaters.
It's your number one movie of the year, right? Your favorite?
Well, yeah,
yeah.
Have you seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Because it's
yeah.
that's my number one film of the year.
It's quite good. I don't count my movies when I'm counting the best of the decade or the best of the year. All right, if I did, well, then I'd stop counting. All right.
And the funny part about it, he's right.
But But it's interesting though, because I saw it at the movie theaters and I got used to it pretty quickly. And then I kind of really didn't think about it. However, I watched it on television. I watched the first 20 minutes on television the other day. And I have to say that the aging process made more of I noticed it more. I noticed it more reduced to a smaller screen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
As opposed to watching it on the big screen. You know, by the time that the Stuckies scene was over, I wasn't thinking about it anymore. Here, I was kind of noticing it more, but that was only the first 20
Young
minutes.
Pesci still looks good in it.
Yeah,
know?
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think
the
so too.
biggest thing is when they move. Like, there's a scene where, like, and I love the movie, but when De Niro goes out that window and kicks that guy, it looks like a 80-year-old person kicking somebody.
Yeah, I'm not quite putting like I'm not trying to see. Yeah, I'm not putting that under that kind of microscope. I'm not trying to see how the trick is done.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of I'm looking at it in general to be swept away with it rather than to put it under the microscope.
Yeah.
That cast is so incredible that when Keitel shows up, you're like, oh my God, fucking Keitel is in this too.
I know, and I actually think in a movie jam-packed with hysterical lines, I think Harvey has the funniest one in there. Do you know who runs the Happy Day?
The other laundromat?
Yeah, the Happy Day cleaning service? Yeah. No, I don't. I do. Oh, who? No, I do.
It was like a who's on first kind of situation.
Such a great delivery.
That's so great.
We gotta start to wrap it up. His time.
I'm gonna ask this
close
my
us
last
out with one
question.
more. Kevin got tattooed with Quentin's stuff, so you get the last question.
This is something that I find interesting. So over the years,
Yeah, I guess that deserves
that
a
earns
laugh,
it.
right?
well, thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. True Romance is my favorite script you ever wrote. Not to say I think it's the best. I just think it's my favorite script you ever wrote. Everything you've ever written and all your movies are some of my favorite movies of all time. So it's really kind of like picking your favorite child, to be honest. But I still think, in my mind, my favorite monologue you've ever written is Walkin' Hopper sequence in True Romance. I mean, that scene, the Chesterfield sound effect. I have a Chesterfield poster in my house because of that sequence. Gandolfini behind him. I mean, it's just the whole scene is just a masterpiece. And the way they deliver that dialogue is incredible. When I spoke to you at Django, and I actually at Grindhouse, you said that you were writing a scene that you thought was going to top that moment. And that scene ended up being the opening of Inglourious Bastards. When I met you at Django, you said at that day that you still think that the opening monologue of Bastards is your best monologue you've ever written. Why? Can you talk to me about why you think that one? Is that still the case? And what are your thoughts on someone like me thinking that the True Romance moment is just a particular favorite? And why is Bastards your favorite opening or monologue?
I have no problem that you would like the Inglorious, the
love
True.
all of them,
Yeah,
but
but I have no problem that you put the True Romance one at the top of the list. I mean, to me, it's like when it comes to standalone scenes, all right, that work, but primarily work because of the dialogue inside of them. I mean, because frankly, to tell you the truth, I actually think the Spawn Ranch scene is just as good as either one of those two scenes, but it's not about the dialogue, even though the dialogue is good in it.
Tension.
Yeah. And that's also more directed. All right, that's a directed and an acted scene. It's good in the script when you read it, but it's not the standalone that the True Romance one and the Inglourious Bastard one is, because it's not built around dialogue. You can do kids in an acting class will be able to do the scene from Inglourious Bastards and the scene from True Romance from Here to Eternity. You can't really quite pull off the Spawn Ranch scene as in an acting class in that same way. But there also is this aspect when it comes to those two scenes, the True Romance and the Inglourious Bastards, is that they're standalone. You don't need the rest of the movie around it. They kind of work almost like little one-act plays unto themselves. And so look, that the standalone quality, the fact that it completely exists on a white piece of paper perfectly, then it also exists in the movie version with, the actors that played those roles to a fairly well, all right, in both Hopper and Walken and Denny Mouchet and Christoph. And literally, the standalone quality that like, they work even independently of the movie surrounding them. I think they're, if you're breaking my scenes down into hit records, I think they would be my two biggest hits.
Why do you prefer? Why do you personally love The Bastards 1 the most? And I'll end on that. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I guess because I think there's probably a couple of reasons actually. It's longer, so I pulled it off more. I mean, I doubled the time, and to I think a greater effect rather than a lesser effect. I think there's tension, absolute tension in the True Romance scene, but I think there's more tension. I think there's more tension in The Bastards. So it actually becomes a suspense sequence in a way that the True Romance one doesn't. All right. It's still there, but it's full on suspense at a certain point. Sure. I think there's a really, a neat trick to a dramatic reveal about the idea that it is just dialogue until we review the Jews underneath the floorboards, which happens midway through, which thus kicks the scene into a whole different area.
Speaking of wraparound shots, comes around and goes down,
absolutely. And the fact that like a quarter of it is in a different language.
That's true.
So I guess, and that also True Romance already existed. So I had to top it. And I knew I had never topped it. All right. So that was a goal to reach.
Right.
All right. A sports analogy, you have a magnificent game with a magnificent score, and you're always trying to, have another game where you reach that score with that type of team. All right. And that's what I did. So there was, so it existed in a world where the True Romance already existed. And so to finally be able to get a leg up on it for the reasons I said.
That's what I absolutely love about Mr. Tarantino is how you have that hunger still every single time of like to beat yourself. There's so many other directors that just coast on their laurels. Like, I had that success. That's it. I'm going to live off of the fat of fill in the blank. And you never do that.
Well, that's why I'm kind of, getting out while the getting's good, dropping the mic while it's still about, pushing it forward. Yeah.
Look what Marty just did.
Yeah.
Look what Marty just did. You could do that.
Look, but
please keep making money.
But look, here's
please. More tattoos.
But here, if for that alone,
we're gonna keep the tattoo business alive.
That might change my mind. Yeah.
That's the reason. You should.
Curious to see where they end up, actually.
This has been such an incredible experience. It's an understatement to say how happy we were to have you back on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And to do it proper and an extended version.
An extended version. The director's cut, we're going to call this one. Volume 1 and Volume 2. Yeah. So thank you very much.
It's one movie. Stop it.
Don't cut it in half. Don't cut it in half.
Kill Bill is one movie and it will always be one movie.
Quentin,
I want to see the whole bloody affair. Eventually in my lifetime, I'm going to watch that in 35 in full.
We show it every couple of years at the New Beverly.
I've never seen it.
We've shown it every
I always watch
couple
the
of
DVDs
years.
back to back on purpose. Like I'll quickly put them in and try to watch it as one movie.
All right. Well, thank you again, Quentin, for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Oh, and the whole bloody affair has the all colored Japanese section.
Are we gonna get a Blu-ray of that?
You got to go to the New Beverly.
Fair enough. And on that note, we're done.
And we dropped the mic.
Yeah.
We need to thank our great friends at Sony Pictures Entertainment for giving us this second opportunity with Quentin Tarantino, as well as Tarantino's reps, who, as we've figured out over the years, are fans of the show and like getting us a lot of the talent that they've worked with, including Jordan Peele, who we spoke to for Nope, and several other amazing directors. If you guys enjoyed this interview and you want to get a little bit more behind the scenes details about how it came together, this is one of our very favorite ReelBlend stories to tell. Us sort of sprinting through New York City because of technical issues that we were running into, a couple of travel issues on Gabe's part as he was coming up to New York to produce us. And that story is available as part of the original video that we put up about Tarantino's interview. It's available on CinemaBlend's YouTube channel. If you want to dig a little bit deeper, find that. It's some really fun stories that took place before and after the Tarantino Interview. And we want to thank you guys again for giving this one a listen. We wanted it over here on the ReelBlend YouTube channel. We've got some really, really fascinating, if it happens, coming up. I'm actually running to a screening right now for one of them. Jake and I are going to be handling another one this afternoon. So keep your fingers crossed that some exciting things are in play. And hopefully we'll be able to bring some exciting guests to the channel. We are just getting into the thick of the summer season. So make sure that you hit subscribe and turn on your notifications. Share the channel with a movie-loving friend. We've seen some incredibly nice comments from people underneath our recent videos that say things like, you know, the content on this channel should have a lot more eyeballs. We couldn't agree with you guys more. We could definitely use your help in terms of marketing the show and sharing it with people who, you know, love listening to movie podcasts, who want to hear more in-depth stuff from the people who make the movies that you love. That's always been one thing that's made the ReelBlend podcast stand out. And we appreciate all you guys do to support us and follow us. And we'll be back at it in the next couple of weeks. So thank you again so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this return to the world of Quentin Tarantino on the ReelBlend podcast, and we'll be back again with a new episode very, very soon.